All right. We are on. Yes. Another episode of Real Talk. Just super excited that these episodes are now available on YouTube for everybody to go back and rewatch or maybe even watch for the first time. And for new viewers, how cool is this? Getting a chance to really get to know these captains. I got to know them years ago and really excited to learn a little bit more about them in a podcast form and kind of what was going on as they had the opportunity first to film it and then to learn about it all over again more than a decade later. So I'm Mike Salk, and I'm here today with Jay and Dave. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you again, Mike. Good to see you again.
How cool is this? We get to be back together. I love it. It's been It's been a while, and that's sort of I guess one of the big themes of this is just the memories, right? I mean, you guys are getting to sit here and go back and remember what you were like almost 15 years ago.
It's crazy to just look back at yourself 15 years ago and go, whoa, that's what we used to do, and that's what we sounded like. And just the styles of the fishing changed, and just the environment definitely changed and
life changed though. You know what I mean? Like, how lucky are we to have that portion of our lives due to the fact that it's a reality TV show, and now that's frozen in time for us, right? And others, who have been fortunate to have that opportunity for different shows out there, but to be a part of Wicked Tuna, which was, a fantastic brand. It was a great thing to be a part of. And now to sit back and look back at the good old days, right? Like, how cool is that? And then plus now, for an old guy like me, we're going on YouTube, we're hitting the scene. It's like, okay, I feel like we're coming up in the world almost.
How different do you think you are now from when this show started and what we say 2012, 2011 when it was filming?
Not only was it an amazing experience to be part of a TV show, all the production team, the people we meet, the people we worked with at the networks, all of that stuff, I think for me, was an enormous growing experience, right? Because I kind of led a sheltered life as a fisherman. So now all of a sudden you're part of a world-renowned TV show, right? Around the globe. It was on. And I did things, I saw things, I met people that, I'll admit in my old life, I never would have had those opportunities. So how can you not help but grow as a person with that kind of exposure? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does.
But
and I want to hear Jay's answer on it also, because you just, that stage of life is so different for you. But just to follow up on that, Dave, it's not, the story arc of that, if it were a movie, would be a guy who gets a big head and forgets his friends, right? And starts thinking he's all Hollywood. That doesn't feel like you. So was that a challenge for you at all along the way?
Absolutely.
Were there moments?
Absolutely. Look, that was a challenge. And I want to, I'm thankful for my closest friends. Those are your homies. Those are the guys who are not afraid to call you out. And I think that was important, and I'd like to think, that didn't happen to me. You know what I mean? Let's face it. You guys seen me on the show. Do I look like the type of guy with a plan? That's definitely not me, right?
No, but you're the heart of the show in a lot of ways. As I watch it, as we talk to all the different captains, at least in the first season, you're so easy to root for. You're catching some fish.
He's basically saying that we were struggling a lot, that people were rooting for us to come back up.
But not so much. Poor Monty. You're not the sad sacks out there. You can still root for you guys.
Because Monty had a nice boat. We had that ugly boat.
Yeah, exactly. That helps. Everybody wants the blue-collar boat.
We had the ugly duckling, And let's face it, I guess they cast us as the underdog, right? Which is, again, it's all about life circumstance. I think because my kids were young, right? If they did the interviews and came up with this idea 20 years later, would I have made the cut? I don't know. But I think at the time I had a good story because it was a real story. I got this old boat. I'm just trying to, make a go of it, make a living, right? And at least for Jay and I, it made it pretty easy, right? Because all we had to do was try, right? If we went out and caught a fish, everybody was happy. If they didn't get a fish, they felt bad for us, but everyone was still happy, right? And, so it made it, we didn't have to be the competitors.
Yeah.
Which, for me, is good because I'm not a competitive person. I'm happy when everybody does good, right? But let's face it, for this to work in TV world, you needed those different characters. You needed those competitive personalities. You needed, all the other people. And I think that's what really made the show a success. It wasn't any one of us. I think it was the combination of us all, all these bruised fruits in one basket, and we kind of made a good thing happen.
With no bananas, obviously.
With no bananas.
Dave, your story is awesome. And Jay, for you, like, you're kind of at a different stage of life now, right? I mean, so you go back and think about what you were like. You're in your, late 20s at that point?
20s.
Early 20s. All right,
Early
so I don't want to oversell you here. But early 20s, I mean, you're a kid. You're a maid. Now you're a captain. How different is your life now from what it felt like then out on the water?
Back then was a lot more of a learning curve, and those fish meant a lot more then than they do now, right? Because we didn't have a charter business back then, and every fish was our paycheck. Now with our charter business, we can kind of rely on just taking somebody else out fishing and having a good time and getting paid from that. Now if we catch a fish while doing that, it's a bonus. But our line of work definitely changed into the charter line than the commercial
because of Wicked Tuna?
Because of Wicked Tuna.
Well, to be fair, Jay, because you and Joe did a great job, right? We have 2 boats now. You and Joe built up your own clientele that come fish with you every year, as did I. And I think that's, again, don't sell yourself short. You and Joe do a fantastic job over on that boat. They run the hard merchandise, the boat from the show. We have another boat, the hard merchandise too.
Creative.
And, look, we run the business with the philosophy, people may come the first time because of Wicked Tuna, but they'll come back if we treat them good, right?
When you watch yourself there, especially the first episode, this is the second episode, but in the first episode, I mean, like, you screw up, he's yelling at you, you lose the fish, it's your fault, he's carrying on, having a tantrum. Are you like almost embarrassed looking at the way you were then? Like, are you that much better a fisherman now?
A good artist doesn't become a good artist being good his entire life. He learns from the mistakes he made, right? That just made me into a better fisherman now, because I'm not going to repeat those mistakes, because for one, I don't want to hear him yapping, and for two, I want to catch that fish.
I think that drama is what hooked the audience, right? Because yes, we had that drama factor, and there's times it looks like we're all a bunch of drama queens, but when it comes to making good TV, right? That's part of the formula.
Did that go down before the show also? I mean, so in this one you get, Dave had given, Monty some bad numbers, right?
No,
and then they give it back to Dave. Did that used to happen before this?
Well, that happens in tuna fishing in general. These fish are worth money, right? We want to make money.
Well, then why the hell are you ever trusting anything anybody else tells you?
Well, that's the thing, too. You got to keep your circles tight, and you don't know what's happening on the outside.
How many people do you trust? How many other fishermen do you trust?
The one other guy I really trust out here is him.
And that's it?
I don't know what those other guys are really talking about.
So why? Would you say the same thing?
Oh, yeah, look, all fishermen are liars, except me and you. And I'm not too sure about you.
I'm not a fisherman, so that makes it pretty easy.
But no, like he's right. The only guys I trust when my boys are on the other boat, and I can talk with them. And then I got guys, again, like all the guys in the show. I never spoke to any one of them before Wicked Tuna. I knew who they all were, especially a guy like Dave on the .com. I keep an eye on a guy like that. He catches a lot of fish. You watch those people, right? We're fishermen. But I never spoke to him. So even when you do, and again, I'm guilty of the same, guys you're unsure of, or guys you don't talk to a lot, you might, to kind of ease into being able to trust them, you tread lightly. And, it doesn't take long to figure out you're going to get burned. And it even played out on the show over time with me and those other guys. I got so sick of the drama and the rest of it, it created complications in production because I just refused to talk with those other guys. I was fine, I'm going to do my own thing like I always did. Show or no show.
Yeah, the one that gets me though as I watch it is the idea that and Monty's kind of a sad sack character in the show. I mean, like you see him And it's like, this poor guy, right?
Yeah.
And you set it up where he used to be great, but he's not anymore, and he's not catching fish. It feels like listening to Dave, listening to .com, feels like the scene in Leaving Las Vegas where Nick Cage is drinking the last bottle, and it's like that must be the last resort. Like if you're listening to .com,
yeah, exactly.
You're at the end of your rope.
Shame on you for listening to him. And, and again, you'll see it, I think you even see it progress as season progresses. I talk with him, and I listen with him, and I know what he's telling me is bull. Mm-hmm. And again, the boys were the ones who convinced me to just, because they would see I'd get sucked into it. I'd get sucked into the drama if I listened to it. They were used to seeing me all the years when I didn't talk to anybody, and I didn't have any obligation to talk to anybody. We'd go do our own thing. We'd catch a bunch of fish. The boys were young. They had a ton of fun. And that's how we did it, right? And, in one sense, being a part of the show on some level sucked a little bit of fun out of it, right? Because now we had an obligation. And I don't mean in a tragic way. It was a different level because, now we had to be all the more on top of things. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm working with these guys that I wouldn't normally even talk with.
And now you're on the radio with them. I mean, you need to have the radio. Obviously, it's a safety issue. You can't not have a radio out there. Yeah. But is there almost a part of you that wishes you didn't have the radio so there's no communication?
That's right. I would shut it off.
Well, that's why there's a volume.
Yeah. Right. I would shut it off. There was many times where I wanted to pull my Captain Quint routine and just smash it. Right? But, then you run into obligations with film crews, and you have to be available, and you have to be, certain obligations you have to be. They have personnel on the boat. They need to know their personnel is safe and accessible and all that, which of course we understand. But I used to hate because, again, the boys had pointed out, they would get under my skin easily, right? Mm-hmm. They would, and the boys could tell it would affect me in fishing.
Which probably affected them.
Right, of course it did.
Now you're getting yelled at on the boat.
Right.
Well, now we're not fishing.
Right.
So they wouldn't even go out.
That's what happens.
Like, hey, I don't want to deal with the drama.
Just like, something happens, then your mind gets, I have to go do this maybe. But no, we just have to keep fishing.
You have to focus and
worry about what's happening here, not there.
Information can be your worst enemy if you get too much of it.
Is it easy to get under his skin?
Oh, very easy. Yeah. Yep.
Well, we get to see a lot of it with Ralph, obviously. Yep. Ralph gets under Dave's skin in a way that no one else in this show does. And obviously, .com has his own ability to get under everybody's skin. But Ralph, it really feels as almost like your nemesis. Each time you kind of like don't seem like you fully want to tell the story. But what is it? What is it specifically about
He annoys
Ralph?
the out of me. And I just can't tell the story, right?
Did it start before the show?
No.
It all takes place during this timeline.
It developed because of the show, right? It developed. I didn't even know the guy before the show. I mean, I knew who he was. He was that crazy guy from Cape Cod, always screaming at people out there fishing, right? And I just wouldn't pay him no mind, right? I mean, like, okay. I'd see his act on other boats and go, I'm just going to stay clear of that idiot, right? And because look, nobody's going anywhere. We're all going to be there. And I can work with people I don't like. Just you do you, Mike, and I'll do me. And we'll, we don't have to like each other. We'll get the job. We both got a job to do, right? Now, again, you put us in this brand that's Wicked Tuna, and we're expected to react. And, Ralph and I were, at one sense, and I'm not absolved of my part in any of it, right? Sure, I'm an asshole too, I'll admit that. But so with Ralph and I, it was like fire and water, or, fire and gas, right? It just, put us together, and it wasn't happening.
Is there any part of that is Gloucester versus the Cape, or is it just the two of you?
No, because Ralph's from New York. He's a New Yorker.
Oh, well, that explains it all. Well, now I get it.
Right, but
that's just Boston, New York. That's a normal thing.
I'll admit,
now I get it.
He was good for the overall brand. Having that New Yorker was great for ratings. Having that New Yorker was great for the overall picture. Again, what happened between Ralph and I was often behind the scenes. And it wouldn't be appropriate to discuss. I guess the way, right? And you add that with, we butted heads. And again, whatever happened to him happened on his own accord. It had nothing to do with me when it comes to Wicked Tuna. But I know there was no tears shed on my behalf when he stopped showing up for whatever reason.
I'm kind of curious about his reputation even before this, because it kind of strikes me as odd, given that personality.
Yep.
And given, Monty feels like a very sympathetic person, boat, nice guy, nice crew. He's out there with his wife. The fact that he's sitting there saying, oh, there's one guy I trust out here, it's Ralph, it doesn't quite make sense.
I guess opposites attract sometimes.
Is that what that is?
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, is it surprising that that's a guy he would trust?
Yes, to be honest, because like you said, Billy and Donna. Billy, I had a ton of respect for. When I was a crew, he was one of the top dogs in the harbor. And so now he's older, and they're retired, and they go out and they go fishing, and they have fun doing it. And his wife's lovely, right? Nothing bad to say ever about Donna. But that's it. Teaming up with Ralph, I lost a lot of respect for him. I'm sorry, because Ralph had that reputation again. Before I even knew his name, I knew the name of the boat, Odyssey. And everybody knew, just stay away from, the guys that scream at it. He had that reputation long before Wicked Tuna. Like Dave on the .com, for instance, right? He was always one of the best fishermen over the Cape Ann Marina with all the other rich assholes, right? Let's face it. And the reason they all hated him is because all those rich pricks wish they could catch half as much fish as Dave on the .com, right? So he had that reputation. And you know how it is in any business where you're at the top of your game, you're always going to have your detractors, right? And so Dave, that evolved as his character and personality on the show because there's some truth to that. He was always a good fisherman, and people always, not everybody, but, again, over in that clique, over in that club, he had his own share of detractors. Because again, they all just wish they could catch half the fish he could catch.
How many cliques are there? I mean, like, you got a bunch of blue collar guys.
Well,
you got the Cape Ann guy. Like, how many
in my
cliques are
book,
there?
I don't know. Maybe there's more.
Yeah.
But in my book, I'm a commercial fisherman. For 20 years prior to the show, the guys I worked with were in old crappy boats like mine, and I could probably count the guys I worked with on one hand, right? Well, then again, and those guys, although I keep an eye on them, guys who caught fish, especially like Dave from the .com, those are the boats over the Fancy Marina. What do we have in common? You know what I mean? And to this day, I don't
have to ask Paul how he gets hooked up with them.
I don't hang out over there.
They've been friends for a while.
Huh? But Paul's, I mean, he does not strike me as the rich guy who
They've
came
just
down
been
to
friends
the.
for a long time.
Right. Well, yeah. Paul and Dave
Yeah.
go back, way back. And I'm sure Dave can tell you all the details about the story.
Yeah.
But see, that's it. When you get into Dave on the .com, there's stories that people don't know about. That out of all the guys in the show, and after everything I said, right, can honestly say Dave on the .com is probably one guy I would call a friend.
Why?
To this day.
What is it? What is it?
Because he's not a bad guy. He's just competitive. And when my boat sank, everybody remembers that episode, my boat sank at the dock, right? Now, I had good insurance, right? So I knew I was going to be okay. We were going to get the boat fishing. It was just going to take time and some effort, and everybody was going to help. But Dave, it's funny. That happened at 1:30 in the morning was when I discovered what happened with the boat. We got down there the next day. Everybody's doing an investigation, the Coast Guard, the Environmental Protection Agency, the insurance company. And at 7 a.m., Dave called me, right? And he said, look, come to the house. I'll give you a check for 50 grand. We can so you can get the boat fishing. Because by this point, he knew how important the boat was to my family. That's my job. Right now, my job was sitting on the bottom. And I didn't have an alternative job, right? So he knew how important it, and he, he had the ability. He said, look, I'll cut you a check for 50 grand. We'll sort it out when the insurance comes through, right? Now, I could have taken that check and screwed him out of the money because he wasn't asking for a contract. He wasn't asking for nothing. He basically offered me a check for 50 grand just so I could get the boat fishing.
Wow.
That's the real Dave. It's not the competitive Dave. It's not, and he's done similar things, like he helped Paul out when Paul and his family lost a home. You know what I mean? And I think it's more appropriate if you let Dave tell that story, or Paul tell that story, right? But so the truth is he's very competitive, but when it comes down to it, he is a pretty decent guy. Right?
Did you take the money?
No, I didn't take the money. I didn't need it. Again, probably because, number one, like I knew I was going to be all right. I had insurance. I know this community. It was going to be hard, but I was going to get fishing again. Again, and behind that, we're participating in the Wicked Tuna deal. So that was, again, that wasn't enough to make it go away. But so I had prospects. You know what I mean? I had a bright future. So I was going to be all right. And again, like my wife. To this day, she still cries when she sees that episode, right? Because that's what she knew what that meant to us, right? But, again, Dave gets a bad rap because that was his reputation a little bit beforehand. And now sometimes I think it got a little extreme in the show, but he's a competitive. And let's face it, if you want to be a winner and you want to be competitive, you got to be a little bit of an asshole no matter who you are. And I'm just not a competitive person.
So you talk about your wife crying when she sees that episode. Yeah. We got to see maybe another side of you in this episode, and certainly in the rewatch of it as you're seeing your dad out there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that's incredibly hard to see.
Yeah, hard. Look, I almost shed a tear. I welled up a little. I won't lie, right? But hard, because I miss him. It's my dad. And, again, but fortunate. We have that opportunity to look back and see him. That's pretty cool. And because he was incredibly proud of the show. Again, I'll never forget, we're going through the cancer treatments, and me and my sisters would all take turns bringing him to the different appointments in Boston and all over. And, there's time he's got his Johnny on. He runs out in the hallways to grab some people to come meet his son, who's, the guy on Wicked Tuna, right? How cool is that?
Well, and you said that he was not a fisherman, right?
No,
he had nothing to do with this.
He didn't know how to put a worm on the hook.
So how did you find it, and what did he think about
I'll tell you, look, he really didn't understand it, but we had this Uncle Joe. That was my father's youngest brother, Uncle Joseph. He's the one family member that took me fishing, and it was nothing fancy. It was bobbers and a minnow on the weekends, right? He was a fireman, and he passed away from leukemia when he was 27, okay? And I was about 8 years old, right? So that was as a young boy, that was my first experience with death. And it was that favorite uncle who took me fishing, right? And that's why, too, years later, when my son was born, my son's name, Joseph David, after that, after myself, his middle name, David, but Joseph, after that uncle who passed away. Because he was the one who, I guess, planted the seed, and is the reason I where I am today, right?
Well, that and obviously the support of your dad.
Oh, yeah, no, and he never understood it. He never understood it.
Isn't that kind of what you're a dad? You're not a grandfather yet, are you?
Yeah, no, not a grandfather.
All right, but you're a dad. I'm a dad. I know what it's like. Like that when you start to see later in life how much their support meant as you're supporting your own kids or your own nephew in this case. I mean, I would imagine as you're watching some of that, you start to see a little of yourself in your dad.
Sure, I think so, yeah.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah. No, it is. It is, and, it's funny. He always supported me, never understood it, never made sense to him. My sisters went to college and went into the insurance industry and the business that he built in the insurance industry, and that's all great. And all the fishermen thought I was crazy for, we'd be out there bobbing around in the wintertime and freezing temperatures, and they'd look at me and go, "What are you doing here? You could be, driving a Lincoln Town car into the city buildings with your old man every day, and you're out here freezing your ass off. What's wrong with you?"
Is that how you knew you had good insurance on the boat? As it was just about to sink?
His company was smarter than to insure boats. They would insure boats.
But at least you had a family connection into the business. Right. At least you knew what you were doing. Right. Let's talk a little fishing. For those of us that are not fishermen, there's a lot of details that come in on this episode of how hard it is and what you're doing. the important things. What is your fireworks budget when you're on a boat like that? I mean, how much money are we spending on fireworks for the birds?
It really depends on like how we're fishing and where we're fishing.
Okay.
When you fish offshore, there's more birds for some reason. You'd think the opposite, right? Closer to the shore, more birds, more trees. But when you get offshore, the birds just get hungry and ferocious. So that firework expense kind of goes up. You're talking maybe $100 a trip for fireworks.
Really?
Sometimes.
Why fireworks?
It's a non-lethal form of deterrent.
It just boom, and they get scared and they go away.
Right.
You're not shooting them.
Right.
We don't want to kill the things, right? They're birds. We're not monsters. But when they're so thick you can't even put a baited hook in the water, it becomes problematic, right? So you want to deter them. And flapping your arms and yelling doesn't work. Trust me, if yelling worked, I wouldn't spend any money on fireworks. I can yell, but it doesn't do it. The birds don't listen, all right? So the fireworks, the streaking, you get the whistling ones.
The
whistling ones seem to do the best and scare them away, just so you can get your lines out and get some chum in the water.
It just scares them away just enough to get the stuff
Well,
out.
and you guys talk about chum in the rewatch. You guys can't use it anymore. And
It's just
what's
don't.
The deal? Is it illegal or is it just not
No.
helpful
It's
anymore?
just there's a lot of reasons it's changed. Number one is price. All right, back when the show first started, we would pay $15 for 100 pounds of chum, which is herring, or sometimes it'd be herring and whiting all mixed up, which came up, from the dragger fleet. Look, the dragger fleets are gone. We went from 2,700 commercial boats to down to about 80 today. So the commercial industry is devastated here due to overregulation. Bait's at a premium. If you want to throw chum now, you're talking $150 a box. All right,
so it's gone up.
So
10
you're
times.
literally throwing money. Yeah. It's gone up tenfold.
So what do you do instead?
So we would use chum if there was but you're not going to use it willy nilly, right? If you really thought it was an asset. But other things have changed too. For instance, the shark populations. They've increased dramatically for several species for several reasons. Maybe some of it's climate change, but a big part of it is fishery management. Sharks are a fishery like any other in this country. Sharks are a fishery that we've been managing since the 1970s. And yes, they went from a point where overfishing was rampant and problematic, like many species, like bluefin tuna, to a point now, 3 or 4 decades later, they're in abundance. And if there's a lot of sharks around and you throw chum, you're going to get some shark bites. Chum is a great way to catch tuna, and it's a great way to catch sharks too if you were shark fishing.
So what do you do instead? I mean, watching that episode, it feels like the best thing you can do to attract fish is throw chum. Right. What do you do now?
Now we just sit there and wait.
Right.
Well, that sucks.
It does.
It does.
Now you don't have the sharks coming towards you. It'd be different if you saw it. Like I seen it when you cut out a bucket of chum every day, no matter what. And now I don't even dare to cut a piece of chum, just because you throw a couple bloody pieces over, the sharks are just going to start swarming you.
Chum can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And the problem with sharks is if you're hooking sharks, even if it's bringing in both, let's say you start chumming and you're bringing in both. So you look at it like, well, I may hook some sharks, but I'm going to catch a tuna. But while you're messing with sharks, you're destroying gear that costs money. And then you're taking up time messing with a shark where otherwise you could be hooking a tuna. So and this may change in the future again, but for right now, with the abundance of sharks we've seen the past 8 or 10 seasons, you're better off to kind of sit there with a few liveys out and wait. And you'll see that as seasons progress too. But it is funny because that's one of the most common things we get asked. Number one, when charters come with us these days, or number two, even online questions like, how come you guys don't chum when the other episodes, the later episodes are airing? We always saw you chum those first few seasons, and we don't chum now, just simply put, because conditions are different.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm so glad to learn that there are that many more sharks in the ocean now. That's horrifying.
Oh, look, people wanted a healthy resource.
I don't want healthy sharks. I'm all set with that.
White sharks are an endangered species. Yeah. The reason they got endangered is because they taste good. Let's face it. Now they're on the endangered species list, and there's lots and lots more of them.
Thanks. That's
So
I'm
just,
gonna try to sleep tonight.
Bring
with,
your
with
exes to the
that
beach
knowledge.
that one last time.
What in terms of the expenses? Because you talk more about the expenses, I think, than any other boat on this show. Obviously, some of that I think is because of your need, especially at that time, season one, trying to feed your family and the real risk you're taking. How much risk was it for you at that point? And how has that changed maybe over the last 10, 15 years?
Well, look, it was risk, and it mattered, right? Because I didn't have a surplus. I didn't have an alternate income. So I was running my business, right? Now, people would, even the other captains would comment on the status of my boat, right? Why don't you paint the boat? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, because that's a luxury item. I knew, the boat was always safe. I mean, let's face it, I brought my kids and my nephew out on that boat. That boat could go to hell and back. I'd put that boat in a storm compared to any one of the boats in the show, and I'd go right back to my boat before I'd set foot on any of those $1 million, garbage scows, right? That's a good boat. But no, it's not fancy. Fancy is a luxury item. No, I didn't have air conditioning. Everything I put in the boat means less I could bring home. Everything we spent, so for me, the goal wasn't only to catch fish. I'm running a business. I need to catch fish in the most economic way possible.
Did that change? I mean, as you start making a little extra money and you're on the show for a long time, and you got some reserves.
I'll admit it did for me.
What's the best luxury item you have now on the boat?
Well, the green stick, but we needed that if we were going to participate.
What's the green stick?
North Carolina.
We rebuilt the whole boat.
Okay.
In season 10, right?
What's a green stick?
Well, it was a type of fishing that we needed that if we were going to participate in the first Southern series.
I guess you'd say the first luxury item for the boat was, putting the stern on.
Wasn't it? Was it putting the stern on, or was it we finally had a head? I put a head in the boat.
I never used the bathroom down there.
Well, we didn't have to use a bucket anymore, but I prefer a bucket.
It's a luxury item you didn't even really want when it was all said and done.
Nice. The luxury item was great for the charter because it allowed the charter guests to take a...
Right.
How about you in your situation now? Are you in that same spot where you're counting every dollar and looking at what every single thing you bring on is a dollar you're not making?
Now it's definitely different. Now I'm not watching my expenses as I was, but I'm still just a fisherman. I still got to go fishing every day. And if I don't put a fish across the dock, I'm not going to make a paycheck. It's not like I'm getting royalties from something. I still got to go out there and make money. I got to go make it happen.
One of the other things that always seems to come up, Jay, you're his nephew. You don't call him uncle, which is fine.
I never called him daddy either. Let's get that clear.
I've heard other stories.
Get that clear.
There's a lot of stories out there. I don't know.
Everybody always asks, when they come up to me when they see me on the streets and stuff, how's your dad doing?
Right.
I'm like, oh, my dad's great. My dad's great, but are you wondering about my uncle?
Is he your dad's brother, mom's brother?
Marciano.
Just call him uncle. What's the deal?
Marciano married my dad's sister.
Okay.
So by marriage.
Okay.
So
you don't share any blood?
No.
Okay.
Just tuna blood.
Just tuna blood.
Yeah.
So how did you start doing this together? I mean, I sort of understand, hey, this is my brother's son, but somebody who's not connected by marriage, that's a big leap to take.
Yeah. So ever since I was 5, 6 years old, Uncle Dave's been taking me fishing. I got pictures of me and him and with a little trout or with ice fishing. And then it just kind of built up and up and up. And when I was in high school is when I used to go on Uncle Dave's and I used to do my lobstering. We used to, catch lobsters and we do a little bit of tuna. And remind you, this is just in the summertime because I'm still in school. But then, high school, I graduated high school and Uncle Dave said, hey, I need a guy full time. And, I didn't start off tuna fishing. I started off, hauling nets and hooks for haddock and cod. And, starting in the middle of the winter, people don't see that line of work. They just see me catching a tuna fish with a rod and reel. But I realistically started fishing with nets and long line hooks.
So you don't consider yourself a Nepo baby?
No.
A what? Like is that, Mike?
Well, you don't know what a nepo baby is?
No.
Come on, there are these people in Hollywood whose parents were superstars, and so they get their nepotism. They get to make it.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Dave's your nepo baby.
I didn't know that's what it was called.
.com's a nepo. No, he's not.
I didn't know that's. Look,
Yeah.
I'm a simple man. I didn't know what that was called. I had no idea.
I didn't grow up with I didn't grow up with a rich uncle, but I got one now.
Yeah, that's pretty
Better
nice.
than Rich.
Except now you don't call him uncle anymore. When did that stop? When you got on the boat?
Yeah, what's it? I don't even know when that stopped.
I don't know.
Maybe I used to call him Uncle Dave when I was first getting out of high school, but then, I just call him Marciano.
I think it was after you get out of high school, Jay. You didn't need to call me Uncle Dave anymore.
He wasn't giving me noogies anymore. He was not like, say uncle.
No.
Because I used to give him noogies now.
It's got to get a little rug burn on your hand
Well,
trying to do that. You rub it right on
no
that's
hair?
why he's got that hat on right now to protect himself. All right, guys. Well, this is a blast. It's so fun just sitting with you guys and remembering all of these things and kind of hearing your story. It's inspiring in a lot of ways to hear how you guys have grown, how far you've come from, that moment 13 years ago to where you are now. So for anybody to reconnect with it or to connect with it for the first time and then see some of their reactions to what they were experiencing back in the day, please go find this. You can find it on the Wicked Tuna channel on YouTube now.